In January 1949, a 13-year-old boy in Cottage City, Maryland, started showing things no doctor could explain. His mattress shook while he laid on it. Scratching sounds came from inside the walls. Words appeared carved into his skin without a blade and without anybody touching him. But those were the small things. What came next is what made a Jesuit priest refuse to ever speak about it again. Now, the boy's family wasn't Catholic, but they were desperate. They called a priest, then got another, and kept going until eventually they had a team of them. What followed was documented in official Jesuit records. These journals were kept by one of the attending priests, Father Raymond Bishop. He details they did 30 separate exorcism sessions over 3 months on the boy. The boy's name was known publicly as Roland Doe. He would randomly start speaking in Latin, a language he never studied, yet here he is using the language. During one of the sessions, the word spite appeared scratched across his chest, but no one in the room had even touched him, but they just kept appearing. Father William Bodern, who led the exorcism, wasn't just a priest. He was a decorated World War II veteran, so not someone who would scare easily. But records say by the end of those 3 months, he was reportedly shaken to his core. At one point in one of the sessions, 5 adults held the boy down on a hospital bed while he began to levitate, and one of the priests was even thrown across the room. It apparently took a total of 30 sessions before it stopped. Now, I know what you're thinking. Whenever I hear something like this, it can't be real. And I would have to agree with you, except this was documented by all the priests. I don't see why they would need to lie about something like this, especially when the parents are pleading for help as well. A writer named William Peter Blatty was studying at Georgetown around that time. He stumbled on the small article about the case in the Washington Post. He spent the next 20 years obsessing over the case, dedicated to uncovering the full story. When he finally wrote it as a novel, director William Friedkin said he barely had to fictionalize a thing. The file was already disturbing enough. The priest who performed the exorcism, though, he reportedly never spoke about it in public again and took everything with him. The case stayed private for decades. The next one didn't, and the family that lived it wishes it had. January 1971, Roger and Carolyn Perrons moved their 5 daughters into a farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island. The house was old, built in 1736 old. They got it dirt cheap and probably should have asked why. That house had a history. 8 generations of people had lived and died there before the parents moved in. Several of those deaths were never fully explained. One woman in particular had lived on that property in the 1800s. Her name was Bathsheba Sherman. Neighbors accused her of practicing witchcraft, and her infant child died under suspicious circumstances. But she was never charged. The stories didn't go away. And according to the Perron family, neither did she. Almost immediately after moving in, things started happening. Furniture moved on its own. The girls Andrea, Nancy, Christine, Cindy, and April all reported the same thing. A figure standing at the foot of their beds at night. Same figure every night, just staring at them. Carolyn began sleepwalking. And this wasn't casual sleepwalking. She would go to the creepiest place in the house. She would enter the basement, which didn't have a working light, by the way. And she would end up waking up on the floor multiple times down there with no memory of how she got down there. Then the Warrens came. Ed and Lorraine Warren had investigated hundreds of paranormal cases. They called this one of the most disturbing they've ever encountered. During a seance held inside the house, Carolyn began speaking in a voice that wasn't hers. Her chair lifted off the floor, then she was thrown across the room. Their help was ineffective and allegedly made the situation worse. Warrens failed to cleanse the Harrisville home, leading to a botched seance that caused Roger Perron to kick them out after Carolyn was injured. Even after all these events, financial issues and the inability to sell the home sooner meant they couldn't leave immediately, despite having all these hauntings. The farmhouse still stands in Harrisville, Rhode Island. Current owner says they have no problems, but the Perron daughters, all adults now, have never gone back. I probably wouldn't either. But Carolyn said years later, the house let them leave, and it didn't have to. If you're enjoying this so far, I suggest that you hit that subscribe button, as I'm going to be having a lot more videos like this coming soon. But now, the last one. This one's different, because the other two were paranormal events. This one was just a person. Between 1947 and 1957, in Plainfield, Wisconsin, neighbors described a man named Ed Gein as quiet, odd, maybe harmless. Ed Gein had one obsession: his mother. Augusta Gein was domineering, deeply religious, and convinced the world outside was evil. She raised Ed in a near total isolation. When she died in 1945, it destroyed him. He decided to bring her back, though. When police entered his farmhouse in 1957 to investigate a missing woman, what they found is still described as one of the most disturbing crime scenes in American history. Human skulls used as bowls, skin fashioned into lampshades and wastebaskets, faces, actual human faces, stretched into masks. He had been digging up bodies from local cemeteries for years, right under everybody's noses. They found the decapitated body of Bernice Warden hanging in his shed, gutted and dressed out like a deer. Ed Gein didn't target strangers. He was the guy everyone waved to on the way to church. His story didn't inspire one horror film, it inspired 3 of them. Psycho took his obsession with his dead mother. Norman Bates was built from that. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre took the skin mask and the rural isolation. The Silence of the Lambs took the woman's suit. That's exactly where Buffalo Bill came from. 3 of the most iconic horror films ever made, all from one quiet man in a small Wisconsin town. Even though those movies are disturbing, I would have to say they don't come close to the actual case. These weren't invented by screenwriters looking for shock value. They were filed in police reports, documented in Jesuit journals, witnessed by 5 daughters who never returned to a house they lived in for 10 years. Real life has always been creepier than anything Hollywood can come up with. Let me know in the comments which one of these hit you the hardest. And until next time, I'm Midnight Reels. Peace.